Welcome to the Unstruggle Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Glenn. Glad to have you all here. Thank you guys for joining in. Today is a big day for our podcast because this will be our first ever interview. And for the first interview, we'll be interviewing none other than my partner and my co-author for our new book, Inside Outside, a retrospective outlook on addiction. And that is LeVoy Foster. LeVoy, how you doing?
Good. What's happening, brother? How you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you, brother. Can you hear me all right? Everything looking good over here?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I wanted to have you on the show. Of course, that's our first ever interview. You know, I know your story. We wrote this book together. You know, I got to read the whole shebang bang. And you know, this is something that I feel needs to be shared. And it's something that I'm really excited to have shared with my audience here on the podcast. So if you wanted to just do a brief introduction, let everybody know who you are and what you're about.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for having me on your show. Very big deal. Thank you for the book. I mean, you're definitely an angel in my life, you know. And anybody who watches this is understand that Ryan is a very genuine person, very in touch with his heart, with humanity and mankind. He does want the best for everybody, which is even more reason someone like me is grateful for someone like you. I just want to say thank you for that. I'm 40 years old. I have 6 years of sobriety. I've accumulated, you know, many days, no days off. My sobriety date is February 8th, 2014. I'm originally from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, Falmouth, and I had actually wound up in Louisville, Kentucky, of all places. That's where I got sober, the men's healing place. It's a homeless shelter with a recovery program. Was there for 8 months. I had taken the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I sunk my all into it because at that point in my life, it wasn't worth living anymore. You know, I have a daughter who is now 15. She was born in 2005, New Year's baby. She was originally supposed to be born January 17th. I was on my way to a New Year's Eve party, get a phone call. I'm, you know, almost half in the bag. And, you know, her mom's like, if you're drunk and you've been smoking weed, don't come. I said, I'll be right there. You know, I sobered up with this little generic plate that I made of mainly bread, you know, because I wasn't going to miss that. But we had a pretty good relationship up until she was 6. You know, then things happened. Other than that, it's, you know, growing up, I've always been a people person. You know, it's very easy for me to say that I've never met a stranger in my life. I just love people. People, you know, gravitate toward me or, you know, whatever. I actually started doing stand-up comedy in 2002. And that comes from 3 car accidents in 3 months. Can't see out my right eye. And because of the last accident, that was the only one I was driving in. But that accident was, you know, they had told my mother, because of my brain injuries, my brain swelled up and it moved. I collapsed my right lung. My right collarbone still sticks up to this day. But they had told my mom at one hospital they didn't have the technology for my brain injury. So I had to go to Boston. And something had told my mother to go home before she went to Boston because they had to hook me to any machine, she was going to tell them pull the plug because she knows she wouldn't want me to live as if I was a vegetable or mentally retarded. So, you know, God showed up early. You know, I've been to the hospital, I don't know how many times. I moved to Maryland in 2008. I was there for a year. I wound up falling down a hill, which I didn't really come to remember until 2 weeks after, but I found a hospital out there, found a hospital out in Kentucky. You know, a lot of bouncing around. And I always felt that if I did a geographical location change, everything would change. You know, I felt that the people around me were the problem. If you guys just leave me alone, everything will be fine. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the problem. You're the problem. You know, I could minimize any and everything. You know, and it just gets to a point where I didn't know what I didn't know. When I got to the healing place and I heard this man say that the drink was just a symptom, the problem is your thinking. I mean, at that point, I had been to detox 3 times before. When I was, now after that accident, within a year, I got my first DUI. I got my license back after that, and within a year of that, I got my second DUI. So that second DUI, I was told by the attorney, he's like, you can beat this case because, you know, I had to do like 7 field sobriety tests, and he was like, 7? You know, he read the report and everything. He's like, you know, you can beat this. But at that point, I mean, I knew something was wrong. You know what I mean? So I've been to rehab for 2 weeks. I've tried it on my own. At one point, I had 6 months. Every day I was going to meetings, and I missed a meeting one day. And then less than 2 weeks after that, I was drunk all over again. You know what I mean? But by the time, you know, when I heard that the drink is a symptom, my antennas went up, you know. And once I took the steps and continued to surrender and continue to apply what I learned, everything around me has changed. You know, everything in me changed, which allowed everything around me to change, you know. And, you know, I'm grateful to be in the position I am today. And I have a very true, clear understanding that my life isn't about me anymore, you know.
Right. Well, you know, talking about the book, you know, for those that don't know, LeVoy and I wrote a book together, Inside Outside Retrospective Outlook on Addiction. It's really a one-of-a-kind book because it's the first of its kind where half of the book is written from LeVoy's perspective, where it's the active addict or alcoholic, and it's the recovery, you know, going through everything. And, you know, LeVoy, reading your story, it felt like a long journal entry. I mean, it just felt like it was just you versus you, and you were just dumping your thoughts onto the page. And, you know, in a way, that's a good thing because that you could tell that this came from your alpha state of mind, which our alpha state is our reflective state, where
Right.
we go through our thoughts and we look through them, and then we do this without judgment, without fear, without anything like that. And it really worked out, and I really, really enjoyed reading the story. You know, even though myself, I've never been an addict or an alcoholic, it really hit me hard. And I just had to ask you, you know, do you feel better now that you've had all these years of struggles and everything that you went through? Do you feel better now getting it onto paper and just getting it out of your mind and off your chest?
1,000 times. Like the understanding that I have now and my perspective of life and why we're here is to share those experiences, is having an understanding that I know personally what it feels like to just want somebody to understand whatever it is that I'm thinking, doing, saying, whatever. Someone who has experienced what I did so they can help me. You know what I mean? So it's like, I do my best now to be selfless, transparent, vulnerable, because I never forget, ever. You know what I mean? So, and it's still more healing because there's still a lot of damage that I did that I'm still healing from. You know what I mean? There's still these things that pop up that you think you totally forgot about.
Yep.
You know, it was recently, like, I remember saying some very disrespectful things to my grandmother, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And it's like, yeah, don't forget about that. You know what I mean? Like, you can go right back to it. You know, the living amends is major, but, you know, service work, giving back, like the book, you know, I feel that it's a great introduction to, you know, the website, self-help, for people in early addiction to understand that there is help. Like, we hear it all the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel as if there's a lot of people like us who do come from a good, honest place with clean motives, and it is very effective, but, putting it on paper and to see for myself how much I've grown, because some of the stuff I refeel doesn't have that same impact. It's almost as if I took the power from it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And all I had to do was get honest, So yeah, putting everything on paper. I mean, I learned that early in the program. When you write it down and you look at it, it's a lot different. Because this thing right here, woo-wee. You want to talk about sick? Oh my God. The wiring is bad. You know what I mean? Whoever put this thing together was half asleep, had my bad eye, all of that. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of kinks in this matrix, So to put it on paper and actually look at it, it's like it's the impact is totally different. And that's also a test of your own honesty. Because you can choose, I'm not going to write that, I'm going to leave that part out. Like, no, you want change? Get it all out there.
Right.
So I definitely know, think, feel, and believe that nothing on God's green earth happens by mistake. I was supposed to go through all of that. This is just my understanding. You were supposed to go through that so you can see what happens when you're in your own way. This is what happens when you think, when you're letting your ego run things and you're too prideful. Go ahead. You know what I mean? So now it's like, I kind of don't want that anymore.
Right. Awesome. And, in the book, you talk a lot about the program, and you talk about how hard you worked to get into that program. And, you slept in the chairs and did what you had to do. And if you couldn't get a room, you stayed there and you did what you had to do. Your coffee, walked home, and things like that. When you were in the program, what about that program would you say really stuck with you to help you achieve the 6 years of sobriety that you got right now? Like, if you had to pinpoint about one or two things.
There was like steps to it. You know what I mean? Like, all right, my pride was huge. So I'm coming from Cape Cod, Massachusetts to Louisville, Kentucky. When I first got to Louisville, there had already been Keno lottery in Cape for like 10 years. So when I first got there, I saw a commercial. It was like my third day there. Like, yeah, coming to Kentucky lottery, Keno. I'm like, what? Like, did I come back in time? But I have to put myself on this judgment stand to hold on to every little piece I got that makes me feel good. So I'm seeing people's name brands and stuff, and I'm like, we haven't worn that in like 7-8 years. You know what I mean? But the ironic thing is this: when I was like, humility hit me like a ton of bricks, because when like I didn't get a bed, that was one of the first times I took responsibility on my own for the position I put myself in. You know what I mean? Because my brother lived 22 blocks away, which I did go back and I slept, but it was like, LeVoy, you're almost taking the easy way out. You know what I'm saying? Like, you put yourself here. So you didn't get a bed, pick a chair. So I did it, and I mean, I didn't regret it. Hold on, I'm gonna run into the room because the phone's gonna die. Yeah, this is what us, drunk without the drink. No, but it was like basically, so that was a major part for me to feel every bit of it. But it was like I was saying, when they had this clothes closet, right? Like I said, it's a homeless shelter. So there's literally a bunch of people off the street that aren't trying to get into the program. So they had this clothes closet, and for the life of me, I was not going in this clothes closet. I'm not. I have a couple nice shirts. I had a nice watch. And this is what my mind is telling me. Like, you don't need to go in that closet, but I needed a pair of socks. So I go into the clothes closet. Now, mind you, I'm judging everybody else because y'all still wearing Echo. Like, bro, we haven't worn Echo in I don't know how long, right? So I go into the clothes closet. I need a pair of socks. So I grab the socks. They say, you can grab another article of clothing. I was like, all right. So I grabbed this black collared shirt. Now, I was going to an outside meeting later that week. I haven't worn this new shirt yet. So I'm brushing my teeth, I got the shirt on, whatever. I'm brushing my teeth. I look in the mirror and I see a little emblem. So I look at the emblem. It's an Echo shirt. So I'm like, okay, God, I see you. You know what I mean? Like, you're out here judging everybody because they're still wearing Echo. But I picked out that Echo shirt from the clothes closet I wasn't even trying to go into. And that shirt was one of my favorite shirts while I was in the program, So I had to learn the importance of humility and really look where I was at. I'm in a homeless shelter. I'm like light years away from Louisville, Kentucky. Like I said, I'm from Falmouth, Massachusetts. How did you, now I had family out there, you know what I mean? And I didn't move there to get sober, but at the end of the day, it's like, LeVoy, look where you got yourself. You know what I mean? And then I'm hearing things like, what bed did you sleep in? I'm like, bed 109. Well, your best thinking got you that bed. I'm like, bro, that's kind of deep. You know what I mean? So hearing a white woman, it was like my second day in detox. It was a white woman telling her story that in retrospect, it was my story, like almost to the T. You know what I mean? So I knew then it was like I started to feel a little more comfortable because I'm around people who get it, who understand me. You know what I'm saying? I don't really have to run anymore. That choice was always still there, but I never took it. But the program, it rebuilt me totally. When I'm listening to things like, when you're broken, you get duct tape, you get glue, you get staples, stuff like that. And you just kind of rebuild. And when you're shattered, you totally get rebuilt. So I had to, then I realized, like, that makes kind of sense. I look at my life like I'm shattered. You know what I mean? So I literally, and because I finally respected alcohol and its consequences, and what I never respected it until then. Why? Because I was special. I was different. Not me. That's not going to happen to me. But meanwhile, all those things were. But I'll justify the hell out of anything. So it was the program that taught me how to crawl. You know what I'm saying? And when I could take my first 2 steps, it was like, all right, because you ain't living here forever. So it taught me how to crawl and take my first couple steps, and was like, all right, you ready to get back out there? But you still have to stay in the middle. And it gave me these tools, man. Wow. Mental defense, understanding that life on life happens, and you're powerless, man. Like when you get honest with yourself and you truly understand that you're powerless over people, places, and things, identify certain emotions and why those emotions, you know what I'm saying? Start taking control of your own life. So I owe my entire existence to that program, my sponsor, my support group, God, and the 12 steps. I did the order backwards. Whatever. I'm sorry. But, if it wasn't for the program, like, and I refer to that 6 years later, and people ask me, they'll ask me something and I'll say I was taught. Because, I mean, like I said, I'm 40 years old biologically, but in this new spiritual way of living, I'm only 6. And I love it. This 6 years, there's substance, there's meaning. When I heard in a meeting, like, you have a born date, you have a death date, there's a dash. Life is the dash. So when you go, what are you leaving behind to benefit somebody else? What do you want them to remember you by? So if I were to go tonight, I mean, I'm very happy with what I've done, but understand there's so much more to do. You know what I mean? But that place, I mean, there was, criminal thinking classes and being held accountable. You fall asleep in class, you don't go to your job assignment, you're not, you don't get out of your bed by 5. There's a lot of different, I mean, you can even be talking to girls too much in meetings and not paying attention. You get hit on the board, you get hit on the board, and then, ooh-wee. Some of them consequences will be like, damn, I ain't doing that again.
That's awesome, man. And you know, a lot of people talk about the 12 steps. You know, everybody that's gone through the program, you know, they always have that one moment in mind while they were going through the steps to where, you know, something just triggered. And you know, I wanted to ask you, like, when you were going through your 12 steps, is there a point where something just clicked and you're like, holy shit, there's no turning back? There's absolutely no way old LeVoy's coming back after this, and it's straightforward.
I'd say I knew, you know, once I made a commitment and a decision to, you know, give my life to God, the creator, great spirit, whatever, I knew then that I didn't want to turn back. But after I wrote my 4th step, when I did my 5th step, I think that's when I knew, like, okay, like, because I felt different. You know, like, I can't really formulate the words to explain how I felt, but like physically, emotionally, my spirit went through the roof. So I knew then that, like, okay, you know what I mean? This is working somehow, and I didn't stop to try to figure it out. You know what I mean? That was another thing that I was taught, like, stop meddling, stop being nosy, stop asking so many questions. You know what I mean? So I'd have to say steps 4 and 5. Also, step 9, while I was making my amends, there was, you know, this one amends that I made when I robbed this lady. She was 82 years old, and I stole a jar of coins from her. And when she looked at me and she said, I know you did it. It's okay. You know, I'm like, because my entire life is controlled by fear, and I'm always preparing for the worst, which is why I was just like, I'm just not going to go ahead and do it, you know, but it's part of the steps. But also, when I made my amends to my daughter, that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. And, you know, it hurt, but I was also grateful because I knew between her and I, things could start healing, you know, but I also knew that it was working because I did not one time think about picking up a drink. And it just hasn't crossed my mind. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I wonder if, like, you know, I picked up or whatever. But I mean, to answer the question, I'd have to say definitely steps 4 and 5. Steps 4 and 5 were huge. They were definitely huge.
And we talk a lot about the spiritual part of things and things like that. You know, there's always the difference between religion and spiritualism. But you know, in the short time that I worked for the rehabilitation center, one of the biggest issues that a lot of people brought to me were, you know, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Jesus Christ. You know, this is asking for a higher power. And for, you know, a lot of people I found struggled with that. And, you know, I like the way you put it. You always say the God of my understanding. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things. I feel you don't have to be locked in place to one certain thing. And, you know, we used to tell them, you know, your higher power doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have to be Jesus Christ. It could be a living person. But, you know,
Yeah.
coming from your experience, what is your advice for somebody that's going through those struggles during their treatment?
Believe in something. And even, all right, you know, and this is the other major part that helped me out a lot when early sobriety, before taking any steps or anything, was I had a lot of doubts. And, you know, the creator or God, whatever you want to call it, in that higher power, I had a lot of doubts. But when I heard, believe the fact that somebody else does, believe in that enough until you can create your own, but don't go anywhere. You know what I mean? Stay around positive spirited people. And when I was told, I got to pick what I wanted to be. To me, that was extremely powerful because I was always told it's this, it's that, and this is what you're going to pray to, and we're going to this church. And I mean, I liked it, you know what I mean? But it was also like, I feel like when looking at my track record and all that other stuff, like, how does that, exist if I'm going through this, that, and the third? And that's where, you get clear-minded, you see self-will and God's will, you know what I mean? But you got to take responsibility to own self-will. That's another topic. But for anybody going through it, just believe in something, and you are allowed to believe in whatever you want. A lot of people, I feel, get caught up in labels. I feel like a lot of people get caught up in feeling like they have to fit into a group, where I feel like, you're free to do whatever you want. And I know for me, it changed when I was told, like, and I don't battle with anybody who's religious. My thing is this: you believe in something, right? Good.
Right.
That's power. You know what I mean? And, it's up to you. You know what I mean? And again, like, if you can't stir up because you're so caught in yourself, if you can't stir up that believe that somebody else did it. Because I promise you, a lot of us will go turn to someone who's in the program. How did you get there? Or you're asking us for help. We're showing you visually that we believe in something. So believe that we did it enough until you can, make your own bed and pick it up. I forget which part of I think that's in Proverbs or something, where it's like, you make your own, but you get out of your own bed and you pick it up and take it somewhere else, something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, and see, on my podcast, I don't talk a lot of religion or a lot of spiritualism or things like that, because it's not something that my podcast is meant for. And
Right.
I know the religious debates, it's an everyday thing. And for myself, I was raised Christian, and
Mm-hmm.
a couple of years ago I was baptized, but I'm not one of those. I don't feel it's my place to force my religion on anybody. It's not one of those things. Right. Oh, you don't believe in God, well then you're going to go to hell. That's
okay.
The Bible says that our job as Christians is to lead others to Jesus and to God, not to force people. And
right.
For somebody that's already at the lowest that they could possibly go, they don't need some other battle with somebody telling them, "Oh, you need to go to church.
Right.
You need to read the Bible." And my brother-in-law, who was my inspiration for writing my part of the book, he spent most of his life as a diehard atheist. He refused to believe that God exists and things like that. And part of his journey was when he was in jail, he read the Bible in its entirety. And when he come out, he was changed. He repented for his sins. He got baptized, and then that was a great thing. And I love to see that kind of stuff. But I strongly believe that like I said, it's not something that people need to be forced into, especially when they're in that kind of situation where they're already at the end of the rope, and they're dangling, and they need people's help. They don't need something else shoved down their throat.
Right. Especially at that point, it's like when you're coming at me with God loves you and all that other stuff, and I'm looking at, like, I'm having all these suicidal thoughts. You don't know what I put people through. You don't know what I've done. And you're going to tell me that God loves me? I mean, that's the mentality. There's nothing but resentments, guilt, shame, remorse. Religion, and, even coming at people on a spiritual aspect, it's like, everything is timing. And everybody still has a choice. Don't try to take somebody's choice from them. When they're ready, they do what's necessary. My thing is keeping the door open. I still need help. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still have to stay open-minded. I still got to stay at step one. Every day, that's the only step I have to get right. Every day. Stay open-minded. Remain teachable. When things kind of change you hear cliches like you don't drink, you won't get drunk. I mean, duh, you know what I mean? I'll catch a resentment the first time I heard that. Like, you calling me stupid? Well, I mean, look what it took to get you here. You know what I mean? But somebody else has it worse. When you truly care for humanity, well, you have to develop this respect for yourself first. You know what I mean? Because you may already have a genuine care and concern for others, but somewhere in that was there people pleasing involved. You know what I mean? So there's intricate things that do kind of matter, but when you develop this certain care for yourself, somebody else always has it worth. You carry yourself like that. You know what I mean? Like, you practice integrity because you really know and believe that, because people will spew out stuff like that regularly. Oh boy. Am I back? Sorry. No, I got a phone call. But I just, and nobody's wrong to a default, because I'm sure you have great intentions in the context of that conversation, but behind closed doors, how you living? When you're not on social media, how are you living? How are you treating others? How are you treating yourself? You know what I mean? I don't know. I just kind of feel like all of our lives are about sharing experiences and being available for somebody. Like, I don't have a problem going through Facebook and seeing strangers going through something that I've been through. I'll shoot you a message real quick. Like, anything I can do, I'm available. I'm not a friggin' monk or anything like that. And I don't have all the answers. I don't pretend to. I'm very passionate about it. And there's a lot of times I got to learn to even gauge that because I care so much. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, you are powerless. Don't forget that. You're human. So a lot of times leading by example is how you live your life. And my goal is to be as righteous as possible. You know what I mean? I'm trying to undo a whole lot of stuff that I was doing. I mean, you got 6 years of sobriety. I was 33 when I got to the program and turned 34 in the program. So I got 33 years of living and thinking and behaving a certain kind of way. Do the math. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it was like, and the program in the very beginning taught me willingness. What are you willing to do to save your life? When we had to walk to that church, 2.5 miles there, 2.5 miles back, Monday through Friday, rain, snow. What is your willingness to get that bed? You know what I'm saying? I did it for almost 2 months, and I mean, trust me, there was plenty of days. It was brick. Oh my God. I'm like, listen, I can't do this. You know what I mean? But I got to remember, you hear things like it's raining one day. This guy's like, oh, we don't got to go today. And the guy said, well, would you go to the dope house in this weather? He's like, hell yeah. Well, you going to the church then. But what is your willingness?
Right.
So it's like the program teaches you this stuff and points it out. So really, from a non-emotional point of view, when you put pieces together, the puzzle looks 1,000 times different and it's more clear. And when you have an understanding of why you do certain things, how you know what I'm saying? When you get to the house and why it's about yourself, there's nobody, and it's my opinion, but I feel like there's nobody more feared than anybody who truly knows themselves and is willing to just be transparent. You got nothing to hide. You know what I mean?
Right.
I am not perfect by far. You know what I mean? But willingness is everything. You only get back what you put in.
Right. I like that. And you talked a little bit about the struggles and things like that. And for so many people, they bring up their struggles. A lot of times it's something in their childhood. They were abandoned as a child, or they felt abandoned, or they had these issues when they were a child. And in the book you talked a little bit about your childhood, and I wanted to ask, was there anything specifically from your childhood that you felt may have played some kind of part in your alcoholism, or is there a feeling that you from your childhood that kind of played a part in it? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think my childhood, a lot of it was self-inflicted. You know, like my mom, very loving, very loving. And it's funny because after I read the book, I'm like, damn, I kind of made her out to be a little bit of a beast. You know what I mean? But she's old school. You know what I mean? Hey, you step out of line if you want to. You know what I mean? If she asks us to do something, we can't ask her why. Tell her, I dare you to tell her no. You know what I mean? So, but she was very loving. She protected us the best that she could. I have absolutely no traumatizing experiences. What I learned about myself was I've had a very, very low self-esteem and perspective of myself since kindergarten. I never felt like I never felt like I fit in anywhere. And I was also an attention seeker. So yeah, it did bother me that, all right, I'm the middle child, but I'm being introduced last. Like, it's kind of petty, you know what I mean? But it bothered me, you know what I'm saying? Like, mom, she came after me, you know that, right? But whatever. But I just had this thing where I just felt like I never, whether it was being the only lefty, but actually being in the house, I was the only lefty for a while until my sister, you know, learned how to be ambidextrous. And I'm like, great, you took that from me, you know? So I was very self-centered, very self-centered. But here's the thing. It's like, you know, even at school, I was always popular since kindergarten. I remember getting on the bus, hey, LeVoy, sit next to me, sit next to me. And I'm like, yeah, I run this place. You know what I mean? But I still felt like I never fit in. I don't look like you guys. There's only black kid in my class till about sixth grade. You know what I mean? My hair's different, so my afro grows out. Everybody want to touch it. I'm like, am I a science project now? You know what I mean? So, but for me, it was identity issues. And, you know, I didn't like me at all. You know, I didn't hit puberty till I was almost 17. So, you know, while my buddies are talking about kissing girls and all this other stuff at 15, 16, I'm like, well, I can talk about Sega. You know what I mean? I can't talk about, you know, all that other stuff. And I was driven by fear, well over 100 forms of fear. Everything scared me. Everything. You know, what are they going to think about me? What if my mom finds out? And I'm not doing nothing. You know what I mean? Just really overthinking was my thing. You know what I mean? But you know, trauma, that, you know, that's an obvious one. But for me, I just never liked who I was. I never accepted me. You know what I mean? Like a lot of my friends, I always felt more comfortable hanging out with girls. I mean, I have about 4 or 5, like off the top of my head. We used to hang out all the time. And then I'm hanging around this one kid who moved into town in fourth grade, and me and him like clicked right away. It's like my best friend to this day. And he's playing baseball. I've always been athletic and stuff. I'll play sports and I was good. And you know what I mean? I don't know what it was about girls and women I just felt more comfortable around. You know what I mean? I'm not homosexual. I've never been homosexual. I liked braiding hair. You know what I'm saying? Like I liked doing arts and crafts stuff, you know, but I also liked playing sports. But I just kind of felt like if I let my male friends see that side of me, y'all gonna label me. You know what I mean? So it's like I had to put on a facade, which I never had to do because again, like I'm already accepted. I just never accepted me. You know what I mean? I always felt like I had to hide a piece of me from this one, that one, this one, that one, but I got to fit in with this one and that one. So I'm pulling myself all over the place just to fit in with you guys before I even think about fitting in with me. It's what do you want to see me in? You know what I mean? And once I learned that, then things started making sense. Like, oh, so that's why you did that, you know. But yeah, I mean, I had a very good childhood. You know what I mean? Like just the average kid, little, you better keep your eye on LeVoy because he's going to get into some shit. Promise you that. I remember this one lady, she asked my mom, why do you beat LeVoy so much? And she's like, because he doesn't listen. And then she had to babysit me. She said, yeah, I get it. She called my mom like, can I beat him? You know what I mean? So it was just like, yeah, for me, it was just, low self-esteem, identity issues, low dopamine. I mean, I've been stealing and all that other stuff since I was in elementary school. Anything that'll raise it. So I think that's why I got a lot of beatings, because my mom would tell me, don't touch that. So in my head, it says, you can touch it, just don't get caught. Right. Stuff like that. And that was my forever thing. And my mom tells this story. I guess I was like 2. We were in Florida, and she put me to bed. She went to go check on me, and I wasn't in my crib. So they're looking around the entire house, can't find me, and I'm out front on my big wheel. It's like 9:30 at night, and I'm just like, all right, 2 years old on the big wheel by myself, like, neighborhood watch. So since then, it was kind of like, never really, I cared about consequences to a degree, but it was more so like, I'm going to do what I want to do regardless. And then looking at my adolescent years, young adult, it's all the same stuff. It's all the same. You know what I mean? So it's the thinking, it's the behavior. Oh, yeah.
Well, we both decided, we're taking this journey, and we started it with this book. And, we want to touch as many lives as possible. And, I'm so glad that when this book came to mind, the first person I thought of was you, and I'm glad I made that decision. But to wrap up this interview, there's one specific question that I really wanted to ask you. And, there's a very specific difference between you now and old LeVoy. But we both know that there's old LeVoys that are still walking around out there, and
yes, sir.
They don't know where they're going. They don't know where to go. So I just wanted to, bring this onto the podcast. There's people watching this video on YouTube. What is your main advice to old LeVoy that's walking around right now that might, their mom might send them this video, or their sister may send them this video. That they may even be looking for this video themselves. But what they need to hear. So what is it that you would say to them right now that would lead to the life that you have now?
I would have told the old LeVoy, swallow your pride and let somebody help you. Don't be scared to talk. I was scared for a long time to talk about certain things because I was scared of judgment. You know what I mean? I was very prideful. Help me and saying, I don't know, are 2 statements that can save and change your life. And being as prideful as I was, I would never give up my keys as many. I done drove drunk, I don't know how many times. And all it takes is that one. You know what I mean? There's a lot of examples I could give, but something as simple, and I tell these young kids that I mentor now, ask for help. Talk about it. Whatever it is that's bothering you, find somebody that speaks to your spirit and talk. You got a question? You want to share something? Talk about it. But I would definitely suggest, and I would have told me, like, swallow your pride, because it's going to hurt you. Your pride and ego got me in a lot of trouble. A lot. Of course, like, there's a few situations, like, how did you get out of that? How did that not hit you? But really, really swallow your pride. And sometimes, and what I learned a lot too is, I'm not suggesting that people just pick any random stranger, kind of, because, it was real. It was a lot easier for me to open up to somebody I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, when granted, my journey and my path in life took me to the healing place, I'm in a building with 300 people that I don't know at all. So that situation is a lot different than sitting at home and going on Facebook or something, you know. But now, even today, like, there's groups for that. Join the groups, you know. Don't be so afraid. You don't have to. You know, a lot of times we know that we're afraid. Face that fear. You know, that first step is the biggest and most important, and you're not taking it alone. Like, we want to help, period. You know what I mean? So really, you know, don't be afraid to surrender. Surrender, it doesn't mean I'm a punk, I'm a bitch. Doesn't mean anything like that. All it means is I don't want to fight no more. It's, you know, I surrender all the time because, you know, there's life on life and I can't handle everything by myself. I'm real quick to call somebody, hey, bro, you know what I mean? If this one's busy, if that one's busy, I know to pray. I know to meditate. You know what I mean? I know to wait till this emotion kind of passes, you know. But I would really suggest, you know, don't be scared to swallow your pride, your ego, and surrender, you know. Ask for help because you ain't winning. You know?
Love that answer. Well, LeVoy, brother, I appreciate you so much. I love you. I'm so glad to be on with you. And for all you guys listening and watching on YouTube here, you know, you can check out mine and LeVoy's new book at insideoutaddiction.wordpress.com. We are working on the domain name. I got to handle some legalities there. But Inside Out Addiction or insideoutaddiction.wordpress.com. You can buy your book there. We got some big things in the mix. So me and LeVoy and I are working on a lot of stuff. So stay tuned for more. LeVoy, again, thank you so much for being with me, brother. I appreciate you.
Hey, thank you, bro. Love you, man.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. I will see you next week on the Unstruggle podcast.